Going to be here is here, so we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so welcome to the September meeting of the Union Township Planning Commission. Roll call, please.
Albrecht,
Here.
Buckley,
Here.
Gross,
Here.
LaBelle is excused, Lapp,
Here.
McDonald, here, Squadrito,
Here.
Shingles,
Here.
Thering.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. So we have our agenda for tonight. It is got one new business item and then one other business item. Anything, and the usual reports and so on. Anything else that anyone's aware of that needs to be on tonight's agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Support.
So, motion by Shingles, second by Gross to approve the agenda as prepared. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so our agenda is approved. Next item is approval of minutes. So our last meeting was August 15th, regular meeting. So you have those minutes in your packet. Are there any corrections to the August 15th minutes? If not, we can have a similar motion.
Motion to approve.
Support.
So motion was by Gross, second by McDonald to approve the August 15th minutes as submitted. Further discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the minutes are approved. Next item is correspondence board reports presentations. First item is Commissioner Thering, updates from Board of Trustees.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Couple of things. We had our last meeting last week. We had a manager's review. Something there's a many-step phase that we do, and that's just one where we answer a set of questions. It's not necessarily specifically attached to the manager, but we call it the manager's review. It does have to do with the manager in some respects, but there's other factors that are involved in it as well. Kind of an interesting thing to watch if you're interested. We also had an ARPA funds discussion. Was that last night? Yeah. Yesterday we had a special meeting to do a couple of things. We had ARPA funds discussion and also to go over the survey. So we kind of got a glimpse at the survey as it has been presented now, to go through to see what things that we liked or disliked, and then they'll go back through and make a clean copy and put our additions, deletions. So we should see that fairly quick. That was a big part of the discussion yesterday. We actually went to almost to 10 o'clock. So not that you want to watch all that, but I mean, if you're interested in the survey, that would be a good watch. And lastly, the other discussion we had, I believe last Wednesday, was we talked just for a brief second about our, and I'll say it at the end of the meeting, on September 30th, we have our cleanup day, where you can bring all your stuff down, your electronics, your metal, your garbage. We did paper shredding last year. I've not seen a list. I believe we're doing paper shredding. Rodney, do you? I'll ask Tara when she comes in. But September 30th, and if anybody is interested, we are looking for volunteers to come down to give us a hand is from 8 to 11. It's pretty easy. We get a nice group there and nice thing for the community. Tara, are they doing paper shredding?
Yes.
Okay, paper shredding. So,
Next is Commissioner Buckley, updates from ZBA. I don't know if you've met since last month, but
We have not. The September meeting was canceled as well, and I haven't gotten word about anything in October, but nothing yet. So, and this was the year that I was going to volunteer, but with that surgery coming, I can't lift anything heavy. So, so we'll give it another year.
Hey, I'm gonna let you ride this year, not next year.
We just talked about how bad my back is, so.
Right.
We can take everything you got within reason.
I have lots that I can bring, that's why I'm interested.
Bring it down.
any questions for Commissioner Buckley? I don't know that we have anything pressing with CBA right now, but do you have any? Okay. Next item is Community and Economic Development Monthly Report. You saw there was a very extensive, thorough report in your packet. Do you guys want to say anything about that? I know we had the first one last month, and then this is the second one.
Happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions from commissioners on the monthly report that was in your packet?
I do just want to say this is really helpful for someone that's kind of new to look at and look over every month, so I appreciate it a lot.
Yeah. It's very detailed, very thorough. Does anybody else have anything that they need to report? Any other correspondence? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Next item is public comment. This is the public comment at the front end of the meeting that is restricted to items that are not on tonight's agenda. So if anyone would like to address the Planning Commission on an item that is not on tonight's agenda, you're welcome to do so at this time. Just come to the podium, give us your name and address for the minutes, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Public comment is open at 7:09.
I have nobody online.
Okay, we don't have anybody online, and there's no one coming to the podium, so we'll go ahead and close that at 7:10. There will be an extended public comment later in the meeting. So we're ready to move on to new business. We have one preliminary site plan application. The applicant is Banks, and it is PRES PR 23-02, preliminary site plan application for a proposed building addition at 2160 East Remus Road, purpose for indoor golf, archery, office space, and related storage. So we'll turn to Rodney here for an introduction, then we'll hear from the applicant, and we'll move through our consideration.
Well, thank you. As was known, this preliminary site plan application, we have our report dated September 11th. This is for a significant addition to an existing about 1,200 square foot buildings, 4,000 square foot addition for essentially indoor recreation activities. This is an existing site, so on page 32 of your packet, page 2 of the memo, you'll see our comments about non-conforming sites. We've seen a few of these now, but just a quick overview on that. This was added to the ordinance with the new ordinance in 2020, and it basically allows us to work with improvements to existing sites without addressing everything on the site. There are going to be things on the existing site that don't comply with our current ordinance, and this non-conforming site section essentially prioritizes what needs to be improved. And it, number one, says that public safety deficiencies need to be taken care of, and then it has a menu of kind of 10 broad categories, and it asks that at least 3 of those categories an improvement in at least 3 of those categories be addressed on the site plan. As you note on this page of our report, in this case, they've far exceeded those standards, and it's a very nice project, very nice set of improvements. And essentially, there's some elements like landscaping and some other things that we'll not be looking at, or existing conditions that will remain as they are. consistent with the section 12.5. So in our report, we found overall the plan is in very good order. We had a couple of very, very minor details that need to be addressed. As noted in the report, related to off-street parking and the proposed dumpster enclosure. So they're very minor, the kinds of things that are easily dealt with in the final site plan. We did also have some notes related to the final site plan comments. Those are just simply looking ahead. With that, we're very pleased to recommend this site plan to you for approval as presented. No conditions on it. And with that, happy to answer any questions as we go along.
Okay. Any immediate questions for Rodney before we call on the applicant? I don't think so, so thank you. Next, we'll move on to the applicant, our applicant's representative. Anything you'd like to say to us? Or
Good evening. My name's Tim Beebe. I'm with Central Michigan Surveying and Development. Rodney basically gave a thorough review, so if you do have any questions specific to my plan set, I'm happy to answer them. We have tried to get the access in that lot much better for vehicles and pedestrians. Some of the comments were bike rack needed to be moved. That's already been moved on the final site plan. So the items that are shown in the report, we've handled most of them already. External reviews, I guess my only question to staff is, has this been sent to the township engineer? We paid that fee, and has it been passed along? Because stormwater was on that set of plans.
Well, I talked about that, it's actually somebody who would work directly with them on. So.
Okay, I need the contact information.
Yeah.
But if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so this is before us. We can move on to our deliberation and question and answer period. So if commissioners have questions, either for township staff or for the applicant's representative, there we can do so at this time. I guess I have a couple questions. I'm familiar with this building. I've never been inside it, but I've been by it any number of times. It's been there a long time, the existing building. It struck me that the existing building, and of course our resident golfer is not here tonight, but it seems small for indoor golf. Is it just like they're shooting into a net or something, just practicing their swing? Is that the idea?
I would assume. I'm not involved in anything on the inside of the building, so.
Okay.
But that's, my understanding is you hit into a screen. I'm not a golfer.
Yeah.
So it's probably a golf simulation.
It's a simulator.
So it's an electronic,
Okay.
computerized simulator with the backdrop, and you get into it.
No?
And they're very popular.
Are you actually not physically hitting a ball then?
Yeah, you are.
Okay.
You're in and it has a backdrop, and you have a course, and you hit into it, and you can see the ball travel, and tell you velocity, distance, accuracy.
You essentially stay in the same spot.
Correct.
Imagine a little bit taller ceiling, and you just hit right at that screen, which could be, you could hit from right there to that wall. And then kind of I don't know if it's how it hits it or if it watches your swing, and it kind of makes it look, the ball go the way you hit it. And then when everybody hits, then the screen kind of goes to a different location from where you'd be where the ball landed. And then you would, from the same spot, hit again.
Do those screens pick up those really sharp?
I wonder.
That's very amazing.
I hope not, because my game has improved if it hasn't.
And then my other question was for the new building on page 7. This is intended to be an example of what it's going to? It hasn't been built yet, right? So it's just that's the type of building you can expect.
wondered that too.
So, the preliminary site plan information requirements included a request for conceptual building elevations. So not a full architecturally designed, but conceptual, give us an
Right.
idea. So
Yeah.
this meets that requirement, to give us an idea of what it would look like.
Is that enclosed, the connection between the two, the existing and the new construction? Is that a, is it,
It's a ramp,
okay. Oh, I see.
but it's enclosed.
Okay.
The area of free access would be the door, not the ramp in between, like that 2 feet of fall in order to work with that site. I don't know
Okay.
if you went out to the site, she sits high and then she drops.
Yeah, yeah.
6 feet between the front of the site and the back of the site.
Sure, yeah. I didn't see anything, I didn't have any additional notes or anything like that that stuck out to me for preliminary site plan. I don't see anything, any significant concerns here with the documentation provided.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the improvements look good. Any questions or concerns?
There's no conditions on this.
Support.
I'll read it. And I move to approve the PRE SPR 23-02 preliminary site plan dated August 29th, 2023 for a 4,000 square foot building addition for indoor golf, archery range, office, and related storage located at 2160 East Remus Road in the northwest quarter of Section 21 and in the B5 Highway Business District zoning district, finding that it fully complies with applicable zoning ordinance requirements for preliminary site plan approval, including sections 12.5 non-conforming sites, 14.2.p required site plan information, and 14.2.s standards for site plan approval.
Support.
Okay, so the motion was by Lapp with a second by Buckley to approve the preliminary site plan with no conditions. Any further discussion?
Yeah, and it indicates that it fully complies, but in the preliminary site plan review comments, section 14.2, point P, it says it can conform. So the second motion basically states that it can conform versus the fact that it's, the first approval says that it fully complies, I'm sorry. So,
With the preliminary site plan.
Yeah.
Since it's a preliminary site plan, it conforms to those guidelines, and anything else can be addressed on the final site plan. That's how I understood it.
That is correct, yes.
That is correct.
I'm comfortable with recommending this, that it fully complies with preliminary site plan standards.
Okay. Then my question is just simple, why do we have two motions to approve? Because one states, and it was clear that it states that it fully complies, and the other one says it can't comply.
Oh, but in each case, we give you a full set of motions. There's also
Right.
one to deny it.
Correct,
so
yes.
That's simply so you have the full range of choices before. you.
Gotcha, okay. Just trying to understand the difference between the two, because one clearly states and one says it fully complies. I get it now.
Yeah, typically the can comply motion is associated with conditions. It's associated with fix this, type of items, or housekeeping items. You need to divide the land before you can get a building permit as condition. You sometimes see on final site plans. But in this case, there were no conditions. So even though that we included the motion there, we don't have any recommended conditions associated with it.
Gotcha, okay, thank you, appreciate it.
I mean, I don't know that it applies here, but there's also, in certain situations, the commission has discretion on conditions, so it would be for something like that as well. Okay. Any other discussion on the motion to approve? Okay, if not, I'll ask for a roll call vote, please.
McDonald,
Yes.
Lapp,
Yes.
Shingles,
Yes,
Yes.
Buckley, Thering,
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
and Squadrito.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
Okay.
Thank you. And if there's a form or there's anything that I need to get to, I would have done it.
I'm sorry for the miscommunication. Call tomorrow, we'll get you that information. And we'll email it to you, but why don't we talk tomorrow anyway?
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so then we'll move on to other business. This is continuation of the process to update the master plan. So if you remember last month, we completed our review of the draft framework as well as of our review of the potential survey questions. And so what has come back to us is a revised draft framework with our comments incorporated and a brief report from Rodney. So I'll let you address us and then we'll move forward.
Thank you very much. You have our memo dated September 12th. And as you said, what you have here and what we're asking for tonight is just your review and feedback on the updated, we call it the revised draft framework for updating the master plan. And as was said, this reflects our discussion over the past several meetings. It reflects both the discussion on the 2018 master plan policies that we went through, and then also that set of additional items that we went through earlier on, I think one of the early meetings. And those were combined together into this document. Items that you had asked to weed out have been weeded out. We updated the document to reflect your discussion and focus. And so what we're asking for tonight is essentially, how did we do? As you look at this, is this accurate to what you would like to see the master plan update look like, with our focus areas, priorities and such? Is there anything missing that you feel as a group needs to be included or changed? And also, frankly, is there anything here that you don't feel needs to be in here? Sort of one last look at weeding out items that don't need to be part of the update. So that's the direction for tonight. And happy to answer questions about the document, but really we're just looking for feedback on this and any final changes or tweaks you'd like to make to it. As we talked before, the intent is that this is the kind of the skeleton of the master plan, the key policy priorities that we're going to build around in the document.
Okay, thank you. So as Rodney said, they're looking for feedback. If you see anything in there, or if you have anything in addition that you want to add, or you see anything in there that isn't, stated the way you think it should be stated, or if, as he said, if there's anything in there that, we think really isn't necessary. So it is open for comments.
Well, I'll say, I know that I've personally talked at length about different aspects of this, so I've certainly given a full opinion on different concepts and stuff like that, but I went through this pretty closely, leading up to the meeting, and I'm pretty happy with what we've produced. So I don't have much in the way, personally, I don't have much in the way to nitpick on this. I'm pretty happy with what we have.
Yeah, I thought it was an accurate representation of our discussion.
I agree. I went through it and it seems like everything we talked about is there. I'm happy with it.
Mm-hmm.
Agree.
I agree as well. Yep. Appreciate the work.
I'm sensing a satisfied commission.
Doesn't seem that way.
Either that or fatigued.
Yeah.
Because we've been talking about this for a while.
But I do appreciate
It's a little early for fatigue.
No, I'm talking about in terms of the amount of time we spent vetting this. It's been,
Yeah.
But I do
Fully
appreciate the amount of effort that's gone into, organizing it and that sort of thing. I do think I think it's a solid foundation to, I really tried to think of, man, what are we missing? And I didn't come up with anything. So I think it's a solid foundation.
Yeah.
And I think we removed stuff along the way. I mean, I think if we thought something didn't need to be in there, we said it along the way, so.
I think, I don't recall exactly how many pages, but I think it was around a dozen, maybe 13 or 14 pages total of material that this was boiled down from.
Yeah.
yeah.
You mean in terms of comments and thoughts and all that stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's going to be interesting because obviously we're going to eventually be, or you are going to eventually be crafting language, and then we're going to get an opportunity to go through that. So our what was it, the vetting and whatever the other word was, there's plenty of that in our future still. So, but we'll have a little bit of an interlude before then. Maybe talk a little bit about what is on the horizon now, what you're envisioning in terms of how this plays out over the next several months.
Well, as noted in our memo, the next step is we'll work on that data book, the updated demographics, the population, housing, economic data. Also be working internally with our GIS specialist on mapping and see if we can get some updated maps, again, for the data book, existing conditions, existing land use and such like that. The intent was at least some of that data we're going to be bringing back to you next month. But my focus is on the demographic stuff first, but if we can get some of that mapping information as well, we'll bring that to you. Just to take a look at, so you can see it, see some of those trends and such. I think also as noted in the memo, we'll be ramping up activity on the Parks and Recreation Master Plan as well. That's primarily waiting for the survey that Commissioner Theron talked about. Because of course, a fair chunk of that survey is the recreation information that we worked on at the beginning of the year. Mm-hmm. So when we have that information, that will then help to inform what ends up in that plan, because that input from the public will be very important to that document. That also will has some land use related questions, and so it will help to inform the master plan as well. Beyond the demographics, beyond those pieces, we'll also be looking at putting together a public participation element. This framework is a good time to do that. It's something that people can respond to. So we'll be looking at what we want to do with that exactly. There's a number of ways to handle public participation. It is always a challenge to get people to come. As we know, even in public hearings, it's often a very low turnout. And so looking at how to maximize that participation will be important. The survey hopefully will get some good responses. But we're looking at what else we might be able to do to get some public input on this framework and feedback on that. The other piece of the puzzle, and one of the reasons we're kind of taking this methodically right now, is the township has submitted an application for grant funding through the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development. It's a rural readiness grant program in which we can, if we are awarded the grant, it will help fund essentially an expansion of the master plan project to look more specifically at the US 127 corridor and industrial development opportunities. That application will help to fund an evaluation of sites along that corridor primarily from an engineering perspective. Most of the work will be done by our township engineering consultant to look at identifying sites that could be used for larger industrial type development projects and have an evaluation of the types of infrastructure needs and potential costs associated with that to develop a site selection priority list, you might say. And that's looking at as we proposed in the grant application, basically looking at US 127 corridor and about a half mile on either side. So essentially, here in the southern half, we're looking at basically from Isabel Road to Somerton Road. It also goes to the north as the freeway curves a little bit, includes the airport, includes some industrial land near the airport and near our sewage treatment plant. The intent is that would help to inform that part of our master plan related to potential industrial business park type projects, and could potentially be used to be a foundation for some implementation on the economic development side. The limitation on that grant is that project cannot begin until January 1st. If we're funded, the funding would become available with the beginning of 2024 and has to be used in the first 9 months of 2024. It's a very tight time window. So to some extent, we're doing this very methodical approach at the beginning, both to build the foundation, but also because we do have this grant opportunity that we should hear back on shortly that may expand our project a little bit, adding more value to the master plan update. So those are the pieces that are out there right now. The data book is the nearest thing, and those, like I said, we'll be looking at doing some public participation activity over the coming months as well.
So in terms of when we would actually be like at this point where we would be reading through drafts and things like that, sounds like it's going to be well into next year.
I wouldn't say that necessarily, because there are certainly pieces of this document that what you have provided here, really fleshing that out is not difficult.
Yep.
And so there may be pieces that come to you sooner than later.
Okay.
I think you will find as we're moving forward, you'll start to see the master plan and that Parks and Rec plan sort of coming at you in parallel, you might say, to some extent. And some of the pieces really work together anyway, so it's a good time to do both together. But I would say certain elements of it, you're going to see draft material early in the new year. Others, like that industrial development side, the sort of the industrial and commercial, that would probably be a little later in the year.
Okay.
When the township gets that grant, how long will it take the engineer to complete the study on the industrial commercial?
We're basically looking at they would be doing their work in those first few months of the year.
So we would have it mid-year?
Yeah, well, so the funding has to be used, if we get the grant, the funding has to be used by the end of the fiscal year for the state of Michigan in 2024, that's September 30th. So the whole project would need to be done, their activities anyway, would have to be done by then. But what the intent is, and in discussions with them, that they were doing it in the first quarter of the year.
With that information in hand, are there any grant opportunities that we would open ourselves up to for like shovels in ground, fitting land for future industrial sites? Is that, I mean, I'm hearing all about the new industrial revolution in the United States with manufacturing coming back on shore and stuff. Is there any grant funding, if we're having that data, does that help us with any additional opportunities?
It absolutely does. It provides a very good foundation for implementation. The state of Michigan is putting significant financial resources towards helping local governments to create sites that are ready for development. And I just had this conversation with the EDA board, in fact. If we were talking 10 years ago, local governments would not be, certainly in Michigan, local governments for the most part were not doing municipal-owned industrial parks. They were in some other states, but not in Michigan. And it was just not necessary. The private development committee was doing that, and there was plenty of land available, or at least there were sites available that worked. Maybe more than 10 years, maybe more like 15 years. What has happened in the site selector community, the national community of consultants that work with businesses that are seeking a new site for an operation, is that they have moved to highly prioritizing working with local governments that actually own the land that they would develop on. So municipal-owned industrial parks and things like that. And the primary reason for that, in listening to those site selectors, is that it adds certainty. It reduces uncertainty significantly, and adds a very significant level of certainty to their project. Because if the site is owned, even if it's still vacant land, and not a building built on speculation or anything like that, it's land that's going to be zoned correctly. It's land that the community wants to have their project on, and it's land that is essentially ready for that development to take place. There's no rezoning. There's no long review process to be able to do that.
Water, sewer. And
yeah.
It's actually is it one of the questions on our survey that we discussed?
It is.
About a business park, and we talked about an example would be some land that used taxpayer money to purchase a land for a business park that may have a spec building on it, and it's got everything ready to go. Away you go.
You have it correct. Yeah.
It was a great conversation. It was never really thought about that.
And this is a challenging area. I'll repeat myself with what I said to the EDA board, and in response to a question about should the township be doing this, isn't that this a great way to go bankrupt? And I shared with them. I lived for over a decade in the city of Ypsilanti, and the city of Ypsilanti, nice town, wonderful place. They had an area of land right next to their downtown, right on the Huron River, that was called the Water Street area, and it was an old industrial area, very heavy industrial activities over there, all sorts of brownfield sites, contaminated land from various things, about 38 acres total, and they decided, the city decided to buy that land, clear all that out, prep it for development, and then bring a developer in to do the project. Exactly what we're talking about here. In that case, it was going to be, at least as they envisioned it, a mix of commercial and residential. And they did not do a good job, I have to say. They made every possible mistake. They did not bring in the right folks to manage it. When I lived there, they were $30 million in debt. They owned the land. They cleared everything off. Um, at this point now, after about 20 years, they are $10 million in debt, the last I heard. It might be a little less than that now. They have had one project develop on all those 38 acres, and that was a Family Dollar store. They sold their prime corner to a Family Dollar, about an acre, and they built the store on it. And it was basically out of desperation at the time, I think. So I know it can go wrong. I know it can go wrong badly. And so if the township gets into this area, it would be done very carefully and very thoughtfully and with every safeguard that, that we can. As I said, the challenge is we do have to respond to the market. And the market in this case is saying they want to work with sites that they have certainty over. And the other challenges we have is that we're finding that the development community is not looking at this. They're not interested in these kinds of projects that right now that we have here. It's a real challenge to find people that will build what is needed. The Middle Michigan Development Corporation, Jim McBride, and I chat regularly, and he tells me over and over again that if we had this certain building type, basically a high bay, open, flexible building that could be manufacturing, warehouse, office, it could be a variety of things. 30-foot high ceilings, clear span space, maybe about 30,000 square feet or so. You could fill it over and over again because that's the kind of space that people are looking for at the moment. Businesses looking to be in this area are looking for. It's the kind of space that Amazon wanted when they came into the community, for example. And they're fortunate to find something in an existing building at the time, but there really is just nothing available in that framework, in that size and configuration. We've talked over and over with potential developers and have not been able to get any interest in doing that type of project. The only one that we've had a good response to, we've had a challenging site because it doesn't have the road infrastructure it needs to be able to actually build there. And one of the elements of this potential state money that's available is it's there to help support the infrastructure improvements that are needed. But that money is contingent upon the municipality owning the land that they're helping to fund the improvements for. So that's where we get back to this situation we're in, and the potential for this expanded industrial valuation to be helpful to future projects. And that's, frankly, could be potential public projects or it could be available for a private project. One of the benefits of this is it's all public information. Whatever we provide in master plan is public information. So the development community can also see what's needed to be able to build in those same spaces.
It seems to me that we lack large parcels that are designated as industrial, commercial, where if we have a big plant that wants to come in, I mean, even if it's privately owned, but if we say, okay, we want our, based on, if this grant goes through and you get the study and say these would be good areas, if we designate that as industrial future, I mean, it seems like, I've heard some of the developers talk about, if somebody wants to come in, they need a 10, 15 acre parcel. I don't think we even have any of those that size, do we, right now, do we?
We have some sites that get close to that, but you're right. We are, at the moment, in terms of land that's actually planned for, it's certainly land that's also zoned for industrial in that scale, it's fairly limited. There's some sites over near the airport that are in that kind of range, but not much.
I feel like we need to move in that direction to get some of those larger parcels and get them into the master plan in the future, where we'd like to see that industrial development happen. And then if there's a large company that wants to come in and needs 30 acres,
right,
we have something available.
And it's interesting, the scale of land has changed among the site selection community as well. When I started my career, going back 2 decades, or a little over 2 decades, my first position was in the economic development side. I worked as the site analyst for the Washington Development Council in Ann Arbor, what's now called Ann Arbor Spark. And my job was to help companies find sites. They get the request, and I'd be trying to match up sites in Washtenaw County that came close or met those standards to share back to them. And at that time, it was 15, 20, a big project was 40 acres. And now routinely, they're asking for 100 acres. I mean, that's almost a minimum. You know, we need 100 acres. In reality, they don't need 100 acres. What they want is they want a site that they don't have neighbors. You know, again, that's certainty. This is one of those ways to get certainty, is to say, well, we're just going to get 100 acres, and then we'll develop in the middle of it, and you know, we'll have half-mile buffers in every direction, and so nobody will bother us, and nobody will be unhappy. It's even gotten worse than that. I mean, you've heard sites, what they call the mega sites, that have been in the newspaper lately down in Marshall, which are 1,000 acres and more. You know, the numbers are kind of crazy to some extent. But yes, if we have more significant land areas, we have the potential to attract projects that we simply can't attract.
And then you can start directing your utilities in that direction too, with
Right.
that, you know, long term.
Right, and that's part of the benefit of, if we do get this grant, that's a great benefit to it, to look at utilities. Some areas we do have the potential for those connections right now. Others, we would have make some pretty significant improvements to do it. So it's good to have a real understanding of what that is.
Well, I think it helps for us to flesh out too, what is it? I mean, right now we don't have a capacity to even offer an attractive site regardless of how large or small a site you may want. I mean, there is a million kind of modernized, you know, small manufacturing facilities that, you know, fit on not much more than a residential lot these days, you know, depending on what they're producing. And I think the first step is having sites that are that don't have massive obstacles to development in the first place, and then as we get a better understanding of, you know, what's feasible or what additional grant money might make feasible for us, then we can start to articulate what it is. I mean, maybe we never get a manufacturing plant that employs 4,000 people. Maybe we get several plants that employ 100 people, you know. So and it sounds like there's, unlike 10 years ago or 20 years ago, my understanding is that there's more, for the foreseeable future, there's federal incentives to locate these types of more traditional manufacturing industry, that sort of thing, in the United States. So even though there may not be developers that are interested in building the buildings right now, there are businesses that are looking to take advantage of the incentives that come with keeping jobs on shore.
Yeah, so remember, I talked about certainty and uncertainty with these businesses. It's all about certainty, reducing uncertainty, increasing certainty. 25 years ago, 30 years ago, our manufacturing base left the country in the span of a few years. I mean, I worked, before I was in this career, I was in the lighting business. I managed the lighting showroom in Ann Arbor and worked in several lighting showrooms. When I started in that business, not long after high school, almost all the light fixture manufacturers were located in the United States. We exported lighting. If you've been to a lighting showroom, if you've been to Menards, you will have a hard time finding something that's made in the United States. Some companies that when I worked in that business, like Quazell and Kitchler, prided themselves. We are American made. Gone completely. They exist. They're entirely overseas. Almost all of them went to China, and it was because in that case the certainty was value. They could make the same thing, they thought, for a far lower price, and even the cost of shipping, it was still they had a higher profit margin by shipping that back. What's happened? I mean, there's been a number of things that happened, but one of them is the world has become very uncertain, and shipping has become very uncertain. Worldwide shipping. And so all those factors, politics and all those things, are kind of combining together to create an opportunity to reshore manufacturing. We also have the opportunity to grow internally. We have small businesses, small manufacturers that have a great opportunity for success. This is the kind of time, and the market is, the economies can be challenging. It's kind of uncertain moment in the economy, but it's also a time when small businesses tend to develop and grow. And so growing those and providing space that they can grow is another piece of the puzzle. I've had that conversation now with a number of people that have been looking for space because they're trying to take something that was in their garage and, at one time now, and then in a small space, that they want to grow into something bigger. And it's just tough to find those spaces.
I write in one of these every day, and it's funny because I have a penchant for expensive pens, and it used to be everything that you got came from overseas, and now if you want to buy a high quality pen, and I'm talking about $100 to about $500 a pen, they're all American made, and it's all made in small manufacturing, so that is happening in all sorts of sectors. So I'm glad to see this. This is good. I'm hoping that it can produce fruit over the long term here, that we can bring some of that base back.
Other comments or thoughts from people? Okay, thank you. So we'll move on. So the next item is extended public comment. If there's anybody who would like to address the Planning Commission on any item, whether it was on tonight's agenda or not, you're welcome to do so at this time. Give us your name and address for the minutes and limit your comments to 5 minutes on any issue. Extended public comment is open at 7:54. Okay, the online room is just the electrons, no people. And audience, don't have an audience at this point, so we'll go ahead and close extended public comment till next month. And final board comment, any comments from commissioners?
Just a reminder on September 30th. Please bring your stuff down, and if you got a few extra minutes, hang out with us for a little bit.
Okay. And I guess I should have done it earlier, but what is our October agenda looking like?
Well, we could potentially receive a final site plan for the preliminary that we just did today. We also have a potentially amended minor site plan for Michael Engineering regarding some changes in landscaping. There are some other issues that are staff approvable for a minor site plan, but landscaping, they're looking at a revised plan for that, so we may bring that to you.
Okay. So it sounds like potentially we may have more time for discussion as well. It doesn't sound like a heavy agenda. So, okay. Any other comments from people? Okay, I think
I would only like to comment that I don't see it, but with cold and flu season already in my house, if our air purifiers were back here for our meetings, it would be nice to have those running for all the meetings.
Thank you. I appreciate that reminder.
Sure.
It was borrowed, I don't remember what it was borrowed for now.
Because of the air quality, we moved it into our office.
Sure, yeah.
So, and we forgot to move it
Yeah,
back.
yeah,
Make sure-
I figured that.
Make sure
Yeah.
it's back here.
All right, yeah, thanks.
Okay. So thank everyone for their comments, and we've completed our agenda, so we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting, and we'll see everybody in October. You went down to Notre Dame?
Still dark out when we go.
Have you been to that stadium
I was
before?
hoping, well, something, right, that's right.